What treasures do you seek in an MMORPG? Weapons? Armor? Perhaps. But what about those that seek wisdom, knowledge, and history? In Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, the upcoming MMORPG by Visionary Realms, the lore is seeded with mentions of lost tomes, written accounts, and historical documents. Lore hunters may be likely to find a leather-bound book in the hallowed halls of Amberfade, or perhaps a faded crumbling parchment amongst a hoard of coins in the dungeon of Blackrose Keep. A world born of words tempts some just as much as one riddled with armaments. In this video, I'll identify some of the important writings as they appear in the lore. Of the 9 races of Terminus, most have some piece of lost history integrated into their tale on their page at pantheonmmo.com. While I won't read the entire text, I will note a passage or two which represents the information it seeks to convey. While Pantheon is currently in pre-alpha development, it's important to keep in mind that possibly finding these in the world is of course just speculation for now, but that shouldn't stop us from discovering the pages of Pantheon. We begin with the Darkmer, a race that was transformed in a moment and given new life on Terminus, but at great cost. But pivotal moments in history often fade from memory over time. Fortunately, the Darkmer maintain the Day of Testimonies, a collection of witness accounts to the lamentable day. Readings from this collection are done during the ceremony to mourn the event. It might begin with the testimony of Amorthus Osir, who recalls how he saw the Nitherian guard with their twin tridents grasped for battle, hovering below the surface. Or how he saw their skin turn red as the breath dried out from them in an acrid underwater breeze, their pose unyielding as statues. It could also include the testimony of Lanius Pregrata, recounting the scene of Cyreni's death, when she was helpless as a fish warming on a poacher's deck before he rips it open. Nithir's guard tore into her as if she were a threat, vengeance raw and without gratitude. And lastly, the testimony of Vethos Ravica is contained in this collection, which describes the mysterious entity present at the moment as a thing unlike any I had imagined before, a creature who may have never been made. High in the air, he watched us writhe, the strange salvation of air filtering through our quivering bodies, heaving out the poisonous liquid of Terminus's oceans. So, should you visit Cyreni's Rest, you may find the Day of Testimonies amongst their most guarded possessions. It should come as no surprise that the Elves of Terminus place a high value on the written word. In fact, there appears to be 2 parts to their story which document their history: Sepher S'iolaen and Sepher Terminus. The lore notes, to understand the Elves of Faerthel rightly, one must walk among the pages of their ancestors. It is a thick opus, full of triumphs and tragedies, begun long before their kind set upon Terminus. From Sepher S'iolaen, we learn the struggles with their tormentiri, such as how the northern elves marched upon their brothers without mercy. Thus they are now the tormentiri, a severed host, cut off from elvenhood for all time. And we learn about the second incarnation of their cultural icon Lumos, noting from each of their 4 limbs fell the fruit of a season, leaves made of snow, blossoms of drifting rain, blooms of tangible heat, drifts of red and golds that swirled like sands on the valley floor. In continuing the tale on their adoptive home, Sepher Terminus notes, in these first months upon the land, a new government was formed. There would now be a council of 9 branches, each with equal authority, with one from the 9 to oversee impartially. And the survival of Lucent, the 3rd dawn, is described thusly. The tree was wounded, but alive, and thus was Faerthel herself. This day became the chief holiday on our calendar, with feasts running a week prior and after that date. So visit the libraries of Faerthel to peruse the Sepher S'iolaen and Sepher Terminus if you seek to understand the history of the elves. Some tales are short, but like the halflings, let their brevity not take away from their worth. The Maiden and the Lad, a volume which gives us a glimpse into the origins of the halfling's spirit, is one such tale. It tells of their persecution, noting, "On the run," Martha spoke. "We are always on the run. We've never had a home, never a perch from which to look over ourselves, not a time by which we pace our work or rest, not a place from which we depart and to which we return." And the fated proposition which allowed their curse to be halted, Its pages detail the conversation, noting, "Your laugh," the maiden spoke into the sonorous deep. "If I outwit you, weak here shall gain your laugh, and you shall fall forever silent." Though Mulf became silent at the thought, his hubris permitted him to consider, but only for a moment. "Agreed," he returned, in a voice like 1,000 vapors. Seeking lost histories about the Scar might be an impossible and undoubtedly dangerous proposition were it not for the next document. The Khagan Account is the journal of Bak Noi, a young Khagan slave of the Scar who was taken by the elves. The account reveals insights into the race's nature, because without such, what truth can be grasped about a race that keeps no written record of its past? If you were to read the document, you might note they spoke of a planet called Deshath, but without a shred of longing. Their one deity had a name very similar, Deshath, which we learned means the Nine God. Towards it they held something much closer to hate. And more particularly, you might learn about Deshath, she is kept in a large chamber, far below the dead shear. Some Skell, slaves I mean, said that the Scar kept the body preserved even then, though I never looked upon her mercifully. As to where you might find the Khagan Account, that is a question for future explorers. But it's not the only hidden relic amongst the works we'll review today. In fact, there is one race on Terminus that is determined to find their lost tomes. While one might assume an ogre to place little value on that which is scribed, this could not be further from the truth. As noted in their lore, the 7 tomes of war are as much a part of their culture as the implements of combat. The lore notes these boundaries were handed down by the deities of the Graven Hold, along with the cryptic 7 tomes of war. One bestowed to each clan, the tomes leveraged a promise of unrivaled power against a warning of permanent defeat. But on Terminus, the ogres now seek these relics. In the tale of Arakamel, it's noted, since each of the 7 tomes of war were taken and presumed lost by the Black Moon King over 700 years ago, it may seem that the clans who prize those artifacts are at a disadvantage. As to the breadth of the 7 tomes of war, we have no knowledge of the text, but we do know, yet beneath those aims burnt the reclamation of the tomes of war, a birthright stolen by their own native hand. So the fate of these tomes remains a mystery for now, but suffice to say that should you choose to play an ogre, finding one of these tomes may be your path to true power. Last, but certainly not least, is the Confessions of Semina. This text is one of the cornerstones of Terminus' written history, as noted by lead writer Jan Gerhardt in the July Developer Roundtable. He shared, Semina, who wrote one of the 4 works we've got, is one of the last Jinto. Let's take a look at Chapter 1 of the Confessions of Semina, which is the only known chapter shown to date. Notice key phrases, such as you look the rose of this world in the eye, a natural beauty crowned in the splendor over many peoples, you may think that only the blind could deny this had a beginning. Or, I have felt the hands of my Pantheon torn in two, witnessed the cosmic power grip the very god I worshipped with indifference, withering him to a dead husk. Or even, this world is filled with those it did not claim, preserved by an unseen hand, perhaps at great risk. Though I have no evidence of it, there is a war waged beyond our gods for many things, and this world is one of them. And lastly, for there has never been nothing, nor will there ever be. Thanks for joining me on this exploration of the literature of Pantheon's lore. When you consider the extent of this material, as I've shown here, you quickly come to appreciate just how vast the imagination and talent of Visionary Realms lead writer Jan Gerhardt actually is. If lore is your love, Pantheon will undoubtedly be a game that'll bring you joy. Until next time, cheers, and thanks for watching.
Pantheon Plus.